I built my life out of routines because routines felt loyal. They arrived on time, left no unanswered questions, and never promised more than they could give. In Harborview, a quiet coastal town where the sea breathed slowly and people rarely stayed long, my days followed the same familiar pattern. Morning shifts at the hotel desk, polite conversations with strangers, evenings wrapped in salt air and silence. After the relationships I had survived, the ones that taught me how easily affection could turn into absence, I wasn't searching for love anymore. I told myself I was wiser now, stronger, that wanting less was a form of protection. Loneliness, at least, didn't lie. That belief lasted until Elliot Rowan checked into the hotel. He arrived on a gray afternoon when the sky looked undecided, heavy with clouds that never quite broke. He didn't resemble most business travelers. There was no impatience in him, no restless tapping of fingers or glances at his phone. He carried himself carefully, like someone who had learned to conserve energy. His eyes were soft but tired, and when he spoke, his voice was low and steady, as if he weighed each word before letting it go. When I handed him his room key, he thanked me in a way that lingered, not flirtatious, not invasive, just present. I felt seen in a way I hadn't realized I'd been missing. The next morning, he asked for directions around town. I told him where the coffee was strongest, which stretch of beach stayed empty after sunset, and where people went when they wanted quiet instead of conversation. He listened, truly listened. No interruptions, no distraction. That should have been my warning. He stayed for 2 weeks. Every evening after work, he found his way back to the lobby. Sometimes we spoke for minutes, sometimes for hours. Some nights we walked along the shore, our footprints dissolving behind us. Other nights we sat near the lighthouse, the beam sweeping across us like a reminder that time was always moving, whether we were ready or not. He told me about his life in the city, the pressure, the expectations, the exhaustion of always being needed and never being understood. I told him about mine, how small it felt, how unfinished, how safe and empty at the same time. With him, silence didn't feel like a gap that needed filling. It felt intentional, full. One night, standing near the water while the wind brushed against our faces, he said quietly, "Being with you feels like rest." I didn't respond. I didn't trust my voice. But something shifted inside me anyway, subtle, irreversible. When he left Harborview at the end of his stay, I told myself the feeling would fade. That distance would do what logic couldn't. I was wrong. Messages came every morning. Phone calls filled my nights. His voice became something I waited for. Slowly, waiting turned into needing. When he returned a month later, he rented a small house near the harbor. He asked me to visit. We cooked together, moved through the space like we'd always belonged there. We danced without music, talked until the early hours, shared the kind of quiet intimacy that makes you forget the rest of the world exists. It felt like a borrowed life, one I didn't yet realize I wasn't allowed to keep. The truth arrived without drama. We were sitting together, tea growing cold between us, when he finally spoke. He told me he was married, that he had 2 children, that there was a whole life I had never been invited to see. My body reacted before my mind did. Numbness spread through my chest. My hands went cold. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I simply stopped feeling. He explained, gently, carefully, said his marriage had been empty for years, that he stayed for the children, that he hadn't planned to meet me, that he hadn't planned to feel anything. I believed him. That was my first betrayal of myself. I tried to walk away, I lasted 6 days. When we met again, I promised myself it would be the last time. It wasn't. We became a secret. He visited once or twice a month, always cautious, always temporary. Our world shrank into a small house with closed curtains and conversations whispered like confessions. Outside, life continued, loud, visible, real. Inside, everything existed in fragments. He made me feel chosen in moments and invisible in reality. I told myself love was complicated, that patience was strength, that waiting proved devotion. I didn't see how those beliefs slowly hollowed me out. Darkness crept in quietly. I stopped answering friends. I declined invitations. I rearranged my life around his visits. My phone became an extension of my hand. My mood depended on his availability. I started rehearsing explanations for a life that wasn't mine to explain. Sometimes, late at night, I wondered if his wife sensed me, a shadow moving through her marriage, invisible but present. Once, while folding laundry in his rented house, I found a child's drawing tucked inside his bag. Stick figures, holding hands under a crayon sun. Something twisted painfully in my chest. I said nothing. That was my second betrayal. Months passed. Promises stayed vague. Soon became a word without meaning. He said he loved me, and I think, in his way, he did. But love that doesn't change anything slowly becomes another kind of cruelty. I asked him once quietly if he would ever leave. He didn't answer right away. That silence spoke louder than any lie. After he left the next morning, the house felt staged. No proof he had ever existed there. No trace of me in his real life. I realized I was disappearing in pieces. The breaking point didn't come with shouting. It came with forgetting. I forgot my own birthday. I sat alone that night, cake untouched, phone silent, and something inside me finally collapsed. My friend Nora was the only one who knew the truth. "You're not living," she said gently. "You're surviving between visits." The next time Elliot came, I told him I couldn't do it anymore, that I was losing myself, that I wanted more than stolen hours. He said he loved me. I asked him to choose me. He couldn't. When he left, I didn't chase him. The days that followed were brutal. I cried until exhaustion replaced grief. I questioned every choice that had led me there. Healing didn't arrive softly. It hurt. It demanded honesty. I began writing because silence was killing me. I walked the beach until my feet ached. I learned how to sit alone without begging memory to keep me company. Months later, life surprised me. Not with romance, but with clarity. I met Julian in a writing class. He didn't rescue me. He didn't overwhelm me. He stayed. When I told him pieces of the truth, he didn't flinch. "You deserve a love that doesn't require hiding," he said. That sentence changed everything. I finally understood that love isn't measured by how much pain you can endure. It's measured by how much of yourself you're allowed to keep. Some loves end not because they weren't real, but because they were never enough. And walking away doesn't mean you failed. Sometimes it means you finally chose to live.